A while ago, I bought this 1970s Tissot Seastar, and it's the best value for money watch I've ever bought. It's even better value than a Casio A159W that I paid 15 quid for, because this has such an abundance of 1970s swankiness. Tissot have had a comeback recently, and I know it's not at all cool to say, but the modern Tissot PRXs are nice watches. You know, they are massively popular, which many people will say inherently makes them uncool, but they are still nice. Now, I've not wanted one because they are so popular, but I do know someone who got one, and after a few drinks, I couldn't help but think that the bracelet is actually really nice. Luckily, I wasn't fated to be a PRX owner, because I realised that the bracelet was my favourite thing about it, so it probably wasn't the thing for me. So instead, I got this Tissot Seastar from the 1970s with a TV-shaped dial and a bracelet that is essentially the PRX's but backwards. So what I've ended up with has the uniqueness and 70s swagger of a TV-shaped dial, along with the swank of the integrated Tissot bracelet. All of this means it's a properly versatile watch that can be dressed up or down, and on top of that, it has a tapestry dial that plays with the light fantastically. The obvious question now is, why am I talking so enthusiastically about a watch that no one is paying me to talk about? It's because, contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend big money to get a good watch. What's a good watch? I'd say that classy and Swiss is a pretty indisputable explanation of what a good watch is. When I say classy, I mean good quality, but not pretentious, and with superfluous elements purely for the sake of it. As for the emphasis on it being Swiss, it's because seeing Swiss made on your watch makes you feel like you've done something right with your life. I've just described the two factors that allow brands to sell a watch for thousands, but you can get all of this for much less by opting to buy vintage. When you're buying a used watch, which has already lost value to depreciation, you're able to get much better brands or models for the money that you're spending, and therefore you can get something fantastic for not all that much. You're also able to peruse the catalogue of numerous decades as opposed to just this year, so you can find much more unique designs which may have gone out of production. Most vintage watches, which at this point means 90s or older, are smaller than modern watches. This means that you have to be aware of many having a 34mm diameter, which I think is too small to have enough presence. I do like a 36mm diameter, such as this Tissot, and like everyone, I like a 38mm too. Another thing to be aware of is that vintage watches will of course come with minor blemishes, but considering you can get pieces that are so much more interesting when you go vintage, you'll still be impressed by them and end up scared of damaging them. Unless you go in looking to buy a beater, you won't end up viewing it as something you can scratch up and not care about. The biggest risk to your wallet with vintage watches is incurring servicing or repair costs if you're buying one with mechanical movement. When you're buying a watch that has been run for decades, the risk of it not being properly maintained throughout its entire life is of course increased. That said, if you're able to find a vintage mechanical watch with proof that it was recently serviced, it could be a brilliant deal, but this would of course add on to the sale value, as it would if you were to sell a vintage watch that was recently serviced. But that's just mechanical movements. I, for one, have nothing against quartz movements, but they aren't properly respected by most watch nerds. Good quality quartz movements are still engineering marvels in the same way that good quality mechanical movements are. The desk diving variety of watch nerds are keen to overlook the fact that watches are jewellery, and in many ways, the movement is secondary. I realise this seems like quite a bold statement, but when it's so hard to define what an in-house movement is, and almost impossible to find one that meets all the different watch nerds' different criteria, I think we just need to recognise it as an exercise in futility and move on. It's also much less embarrassing to opt for a cheap and reliable quartz movement than a specification-chasing mechanical movement that's chopped and changed by countless different micro brands. Now, I am very sorry for ruining the past minute and a half for anyone watching who isn't too into their watches by means of that rant. However, the fact this watch avoids any of that coming up in conversation is exactly why I love it. It's got a unique and swanky design with Swiss made written on it, so I've had a few people compliment me on it, and at no point have I explained that it has a very complicated movement which can work in extreme situations, like some people feel compelled to. Instead, I've thanked them, said that I liked the design and it's from the 1970s, after which the conversation has moved on. It appeals to my watch nerd tendencies, but it also means that I still have friends because I haven't bored them all to death about pressure ratings, coaxials or spring drives. I didn't even have to pay a previous owner all that much for it because the movement doesn't give another watch nerd the opportunity to bore their friends to death. If you want value for money from a watch, get a good quality vintage quartz. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more stuff I create as it comes out, then please do subscribe. Thank you.